Hi there, folks. Welcome to the A Minute to Midnight Show. This is Tony. I'm coming to you from New Zealand, where we've got early spring here. Bit of mixed weather, a bit cold this morning, but we've had some reasonably warm days at times too. I'm with John Heller today, and John, you're not at home in Ohio, you're in California, and I believe you're having extremes in the other direction, very hot.
I'm staying with some good friends in Temecula, California. Over the weekend, I was with the Tip of the Spear geopolitics and the election prophecy conference up in Woodland Hills. I flew into Ontario, California, and I drove up. And as I drove up through Pasadena along the Ventura Highway through, Glendale, Hollywood, that area to Woodland Hills, my car temperature gauge for about 30, 40 minutes set 120 degrees.
Crazy.
And it was very hot. I went out to get some, I found I sort of become a fan of Vietnamese food. So I found a place up in Canoga Park that was highly rated. I was the only one in the restaurant. It was in an older building and the air conditioning couldn't keep up. So it had to be probably 95 in the restaurant.
Wow.
So if depending on how you season your Vietnamese food, it could be pretty hot. So I put a lot of spices on. So I'm sitting over there sweating profusely. And the owner of the restaurant came over and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah. I mean, look, I'm eating hot Vietnamese soup and broth with spices in it, and it's 95 degrees in here." She said, "Yeah, sorry about that." But it was today's the last day of the high heat, they say, but it's been highs of 108 to 118 or 19 or 20 since I've been here.
That's
so
crazy.
It's very, very hot. And for Southern California, a little bit on the humid side, they had some huge thunderstorms near us, and then we were getting these warnings of flash flood. So your friend and my friend Joni, she lives over the mountain from where I am in Temecula. And so this morning I went out early. We're going to play golf, and I had white stuff all over my car. And I thought, man, there's not that many trees around to do that much pollen. And it was ash from fires. So there's a few big fires around. I don't think anything threatening anybody's home right at the moment, but it's very hot, very dry. And for Southern California this time of year, very little wind.
Okay, yeah, that sounds very extreme. And we've had the opposite. We've had wind the last few days.
Yeah,
so,
I think tomorrow the high temperature will be 82. Of course, that's the day I'm leaving to go home. So
right, okay,
that's the way that works.
That's hot enough considering it's already September. But yes, like I say, we're certainly nowhere near those temperatures mostly at the moment. So, but John, what else do you want to talk about in?
Well, I just remind people, I did do the Tip of the Spear conference. I think that's available for purchase on live stream. It's archived. It was me, Tom Hughes, Brandon Holthouse, Lee Brainerd, and I'm going to forget some other people, Mondo Gonzalez, and some others. Oh, Alex Newman, of course, was there speaking. So you can get that at tipofthespear.org, I think it is. And then Sunday night, Tom Hughes and I did a thing at 412 Church in Temecula, and you can go to hopeforourtimes.com, the Hope for Our Times app, or the YouTube or Rumble. Well, I don't know if they're on Rumble. They have Roku, and you can watch. Tom and I had about an hour and a half conversation on things going on in the world in the Middle East. And then I did a recording yesterday for, well, it's on right now. Just finishing up a discussion that I had with Tom and Bill Salas yesterday on Israel and the Middle East. So a few things. I've been busy since I've been here. I'm not just sitting around doing nothing. So there's a number of things coming up that are very important. So maybe we can break those down into sort of globalist type politics, threats of war, the situation in Israel, and then sort of the war on everybody. But that's probably more related to the first topic. So next, let's see, we're September I just now realized I'm flying home on September 11th, which
Yeah.
was probably a good choice. But in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, the UN will start a very big thing. I mean, the people at the UN think this is a really, really big deal. And it's going to be the summit of the future at the UN. And they have proposed drafts for the pact for the future. Now, some people have maybe translated that into the covenant with many. I'm not sure that it's one of those things I don't think we'll know that it's that until after it's occurred.
Yeah.
I heard an Orthodox Jewish rabbi once recently talking about the Gog and Magog war, and he says, yes, Gog and Magog is coming. It's probably coming very soon. He says, but we may know that it's Gog Magog and we may not. And then Mashiach will come and say, hey, you guys, that was Gog Magog that just happened. So that's the way some of this may be. So until then, I think we're sort of in the era of righteous speculation. Here in the United States, we, of course, have the presidential debate between two candidates that not a lot of people like in any way. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. It starts in a couple hours, I think. I certainly don't want Kamala Harris to win, but I'm not personally really optimistic about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I think it's a significant election, but also understand that 64% of the world's population is electing their leadership this year. It's an unprecedented number. So you layer on top of that, and things have changed. The UK power structure changed dramatically. I think they had elections in Australia. There's talk they may be going to elections in Canada. The UK had elections, Germany, France, and so the world is in a good bit of turmoil right now over these elections. There seems to be a template that some of the elites have put in place to cause this election chaos. So I'm not, as I said, I'm not optimistic on the Trump thing, but it's also will be interesting to see how this plays into sort of the, what would I call the world order that's, I think, changing as we speak. The East is trying to do things to lessen the influence of the United States. That might include doing things to get rid of the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. There's some moves afoot there. But I do think the most significant thing in the next couple of weeks is going to be the Summit for the Future at the UN. And that's going to, I think that will, assuming these things go through, and I've seen the drafts of the proposed pact for the future, and it's pretty much everything that you would want to warn people about. Very globalist agenda, very green agenda, digital ID, AI, governing health concerns, and treatments for health conditions and that sort of thing. It's kind of tied into the WHO negotiations on a new health treaty that they want to shove down the throat of everybody in the world. So I don't know exactly what they're going to say. I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but I just know that I'm pretty sure that the general public's best interests are not being considered at this meeting.
The thing is, you mentioned all the different countries having elections and different things like that, but when it comes to it, it doesn't really make any difference to the United Nations and the agendas, because whoever gets into politics still, for the most part, just follows along like sheep and does what they're told and will vote in favour. It really doesn't matter whether it's a supposedly socialist government or a conservative government or whatever, they still follow the same agenda. So, which I don't hold hope for much in our politicians in New Zealand either, because it didn't really make a lot of difference going from a supposedly socialist government to a more conservative one I can't really see a lot of difference when it comes to globalist policies. It's just all gets marching on.
Right. I mean, if you go back 6 months or 7 months to the meeting at Davos of the World Economic Forum, closely followed by, I think I have the sequence correctly, closely followed by the World Governments Summit. That used to be called the World Government Summit. So they think that we were getting onto them. So now they call it the World Governments Summit.
Yeah.
Like that really changed, persuaded us that we shouldn't be concerned. And if you remember at that summit back in February, Klaus Schwab, who's now stepped down as the head, or is in the process of stepping down as the head of the World Economic Forum, I think his son is taking over, as if that's going to make a huge difference. Yeah. It says, we are speaking about the transition of humankind into a new era, which is not just characterized by technological change. We first had the transition about 100 years ago from the agricultural society to the industrial society. But today we speak about transitioning to what I would call the intelligent age. And if you remember just sort of the recent history of the World Economic Forum, the World Government Summit, and some of these other big gatherings, the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, the Financial Investment, the FII Institute that's put on by Saudi Arabia, they all sort of have this common theme. And recently, in the last year, what's become a common theme is the development of artificial intelligence, which is dramatically, I've been reading a lot on the change in war technology, weapons technology, and how it's really changing the game. So I know we'll talk about Israel in a moment, but this is very apparent in Israel, where, and also Ukraine-Russian war, where relatively cheap drone technology has been causing havoc. And now the countries that are facing this, like Israel, like Russia, like the drone technology of Hezbollah against Israel, the drone technology of Ukraine against Russia, they're really pivoting quite quickly to counter the effectiveness of the drones. But the problem is then the people using the drones very effectively are picking up what the other side, like Russia, is doing to thwart drone warfare, and then they're able to adapt their drones very quickly. So it's really changing the face of war around the world. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to act at the Summit for the Future at the UN like everything is sort of just going along like it always was. I have been talking to some insiders in the artificial intelligence community from time to time. One thing they tell me is that this is much farther along than the public really understands. There's been a concern recently that the AI server farms or computing needs will, I think I saw one statistics that if it stayed at where it was, AI would be consuming about 40% of the current world's energy output. Mm. And when they're shutting down coal-burning power plants and things everywhere, that's very concerning. Yeah. But there's also, I was just at a discussion the other day about this, there's been reports that AI chips are soon on the cusp of becoming 2,500 times more energy efficient. And so I did talk to one of my AI contacts, and he says, yes, those are in prototype right now and being tested, but should go into production very soon. So that might cut back on a lot of the concerns that people have about lack of power, as if the elites really care whether we have electricity or not. I think they're going to push a lot of stuff to the AI and data server farms. So, and then one of the other subjects that I think is going to come up at the Summit of the Future is going to be digital identity. That's going to be a big deal for the rest of our lifetime. And it's people in that industry are telling me that they're using AI quite a bit more because it does help with certain tasks, programming and some things like that. And it's really, we've talked about this for the last 2-3 years easily, but it's becoming more and more intrusive into everything. And people say that AI is dumb now and it's going to be dumber. But I think the AI concerns might actually be a bit of a distraction, that the thing that will be more of a concern is the collection of data that happens. And in some respects, it's very easy to get seduced by it. That, I've been traveling on the road for the last week. As I'm getting older, I leave things places, and I have little things that I can just pick up an app and I can find out exactly where I left them. And my wife, I've kind of joked about this a little bit. She's sort of like, "Hey, why did you stop at 2 gas stations in the last 5 minutes? Did somebody steal your credit card?" So there's an advantage to that, but then the good is also outweighed by the bad of that tracking technology that's now available to everybody. But that's just rudimentary stuff compared to what the big tech data companies are doing in vacuuming up and analyzing and using all of the data that we put out there.
And of course, AI is what they use to very quickly collaborate all that stuff together, and all the facial technology, facial recognition technology, and all of those things. So very quickly they can access the information.
Well, I noticed when I flew out here, you go to the checkpoint, the TSA checkpoint at the airport, and they're taking your picture. And they say, of course, this is deleted after we've positively identified your information, but somehow I don't believe that to be the case. So they know where you're flying, they know where you are, and it's very concerning because, so this would sort of lead to the next topic, and that's lawfare and censorship that is going on an epic scale. You're seeing this on all sorts of levels. For example, Carolyn Glick at JNS TV reported the other day some things that are going on in Israel with, and you would call them Zionist settlers that live in Judea and Samaria. That's the biblical heartland of Israel, but it's now commonly referred to as the West Bank.
Right.
And we live with this ruse that, we'll get this thing resolved and we'll have a 2-state solution, and the Palestinians will be given control of the West Bank and Gaza, and everything will be great. But that's not a 2-state solution. That's a 3 or 4-state solution, because the original division of the land was Israel west of the Jordan, Jordan east of the Transjordan east of the Jordan River. But then the Arabs kind of created the Palestinian people, were sort of created out of whole cloth by Russia back in the 1960s. I think that's a well-documented historical fact, to create tension between the relatively new nation of Israel at the time and its allies, like the United States, the West, that Russia opposes. So this is so what they're doing in Israel, for example, there was an Israeli woman, Jewish Zionist, who lives in southern Israel. She has 8 children. She was protesting the delivery of aid to Hamas. Now, Hamas is recognized, her claim was Hamas is a terror organization. We should not be delivering aid directly to them because they steal it, pump up the prices, and use that to fund their terror operations against Israel and other Western people. And the United States government recognizes Hamas as a terror organization. nevertheless, the U.S. State Department has now debanked this lady. She can't do anything. She's a mother of 8. She cannot shop. She cannot pay her mortgage. She lives in southern Israel, not too far from Gaza. And the reason that this is being done by the U.S. government is because the U.S. government does not like what she's saying.
Yeah.
And everybody says, well, that's in a foreign country, so she's not subject to the First Amendment. However, because of joint bank accounts and that type of thing, her husband is also being debanked. And I believe he's a physician, but he is also a U.S. citizen. So the U.S. government is shutting down a family's finances because they don't like what they're saying, and that's completely contrary to the First Amendment. There is a whole industry at government on many levels to censor people and control what they're saying. You and I have experienced it with getting warnings and strikes and that sort of thing, and videos taken down by YouTube. I know other people in the Bible prophecy community have had videos where what YouTube considers to be offensive content has just been flat out removed from the video. The video stays up, but it's not the video that the person put up. And so there is this.
Okay.
Yeah, there is this push. Somebody at the conference over the weekend was talking about that's happened to them.
Wow. Okay, that's not what I haven't experienced that. I mean, we've still got an active strike on YouTube at the moment from a video they took down. But
well, they used to do that. And I had this ridiculous situation a few years ago. I quoted Naomi Wolf on social credit monitoring. It will be like Red China's. And so they gave me a strike. I challenged it, and they took the strike away, left the video up. But I had reposted that video twice, once in a live slot and once in just a video slot. So they went to the other video, gave me a strike on that one.
Yeah.
I appealed it on the exact. I showed them what they had said, and they said, well, I don't care. That was somebody else. Your appeal is denied, and the strike stands. It's an insane system. And part of this, I'm sure that part of it is to keep you on your toes at all times so that you are always thinking twice or 3 or 4 times before you say anything, which is a way of them getting you to comply.
Exactly. They want dumbed down compliance. That's what they want. And then eventually they'll shut us down entirely. But that's pretty amazing how we're hearing it's ramping up big time at the moment around the world, this whole censorship thing.
Well, and it's going to be worse as this election in the United States, which is still, I guess most people would still call us the world's biggest superpower, although that itself could be changing very quickly. But this election is going to be very, very critical. And so whether you like Trump or not, I can guarantee you it will be bad if Kamala Harris is elected. It might not be bad if Trump is elected. That's sort of my analysis on it. Let me give you an example. So you probably are aware of the protest against Islamic immigrants in the UK.
Yeah.
The government there it's a left-wing government, has decided that it's racist to protest against immigrants. And in fact, this is hitting home near me, where there are big protests and people complaining to the city council in Springfield, Ohio, just 40 minutes from my house, about Haitian immigrants and what they're doing and how they're really almost destroying the community. So this is a town of 50, 60,000, which now has 20,000 Haitian immigrants.
Crikey. Yeah.
They don't come there with jobs or money or anything. They're camping out on streets or camping in parks. And there are a lot of allegations. And the media right now is engaged in this massive gaslighting campaign. For example, I've seen the people go to the city council and say they're taking our cats and eating them, these immigrants. And so there's this, and J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate for the Republicans, related the stories. And now there's like a massive media campaign, CNN, MSNBC, gaslighting everybody that no, that there's nothing happening. This is all made up. It's all a Republican psychological operation. Once again, proving the point that they will always accuse you of doing what they are themselves doing.
Yeah.
So, and we're being gaslit all the time. But back to the UK. So in the UK, they've been arresting the people who have protested. There are counter protests where these Islamic communities, and in the UK, by the way, some rather large cities now have Islamic mayors. London and I believe Birmingham, the mayor is an Islamic person.
Right.
So they're not very keen on doing anything against people from their religion. And when these groups come out to counter protest, they're carrying knives and axes. But the people that are protesting against them being there and what's going on and how it's destroying the fabric of communities all across England and the UK and other countries in the UK, the what they are called the extreme far right-wing racist protesters, they're being arrested. And this has only been going on for about a month. And there are many, I believe, dozens of people who have been arrested, tried, or forced to plead, pressured by, the cost of the defense and that type of thing into pleading guilty. And they're serving hard time, 2, 3, 4, 10 years in prison, some of which only involved them posting something in support of these protests on social media.
I know, that's insane.
And then one of the police captains or person in charge of the police in London came out and said, and we don't care if you're not in the UK, we're monitoring you. We will charge you here in the UK and then file to have you extradited to the UK to stand trial. Now, this should chill everybody, send a chill up everybody's spine in the United States. But then the question becomes, this is what Kamala Harris, or as I call her, Kamala Harris, wants. This type of censorship regime. Mark Zuckerberg admitted in a letter to Congress that they were taking down posts because the government pressured them to do so.
Yeah.
And so then the question becomes, so let's say that somebody is charged in the UK and the British government comes to the US and asks for that person to be arrested and then extradited under the extradition treaties that we have to the UK to stand trial. This will destroy the person's life. Their life, when that happens, will effectively be over. And so in the UK, understand that these people are going to prison in a matter of days, maybe a week or two from when the alleged offense occurred. Criminal trials never proceed that quickly unless there's a very huge agenda, and it appears that this is part of a very huge censorship agenda.
Yeah.
It's creating enough pressure in the UK that prisons are now overcrowded. So now what they're doing is they're putting in people who are protesting by posting on social media, not attacking anyone, and they're letting loose hardened criminals doing crime who've been charged with crimes of assault, battery, and rape. And even then, the prisons are still too crowded. So now the UK is entering into agreements. One is particularly Estonia, which has, I guess, open beds in its prison, that they will take the prisoners from the UK. So somebody posts on social media, they're arrested, pressured into pleading guilty, or they're tried and found guilty. They're sentenced to years in prison. Now they're going to be serving time for a British crime in a prison in Estonia.
Wow.
In the Baltic states.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, Tony, is what does that do to their family structure? What does that do to their finances? And the answer is it will destroy their family. It will destroy their finances. Their life is effectively over as a functioning member of civil society. The thing that's so troubling about this is that the people that are instituting these policies don't care. It's exactly what they want to do. And I'm very troubled by it, as I know you are as well.
Well, the thing is, it's what it's doing too is it's sending a message to the whole world: you better shut up and comply and toe the line, or the same thing can happen to you. And that's really what it's a fear tactic. It's that Pavlov's dog thing. And so everyone will then be too afraid in case the same thing happens to them, which is exactly what the powers that be want. They want us complying to the whole agenda, the UN, World Economic Forum, Globalist, WHO agenda. And so if you don't, they're making it very clear now, you better look out because we're coming after you.
Well, I mean, so for example, we know the famous saying that the World Economic Forum says, oh, no, that's not what we meant, that you'll own nothing and be happy. You know, that was from back in 2016. Yeah. There were articles. You can still find it on the Internet Archive. It's still there. It happened. We all heard it. We saw the videos. And the World Economic Forum promoted this idea.
Yeah.
It now needs to be updated with you'll own nothing and you'll be happy and you won't be able to say anything about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm concerned about that. So as concerned as I am about AI and its development and some of the things that are going on that I think really play sort of into end times Bible prophecy, I'm also concerned about the use of the tech. So technology is used in the censorship regime on an epic scale. And, I don't know at this point how this is rolled back at all, regardless of who's elected in your country or my country or the UK. It seems to be on track for this.
Yeah, I don't think it will get rolled back. And the thing about AI too, let's remember that AI responds to how it's programmed. So, if it's programmed by socialists or, world government activist type people that want a certain type of world government regime, then of course AI is going to respond to that. It's not neutral. And that's what people need to realize. And that's AI all across the board. It's responding to how the programmers have programmed it to respond.
And the problem I have with that side of the political ledger is that they have this overarching belief that they're going to create a utopia similar to the kingdom of God, I guess is how you would describe it. It's sort of like what they did at the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
That are going to create this perfect utopian society where we will be as gods, or at least we elites will be as God.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of the ledger too, though, is you need to be concerned about people on the other side fighting them that are saying we're gonna make everything right. We're going to create a kingdom of God type environment on Earth, sort of a utopia. So I think you need to be afraid of both sides, very concerned and watching both sides of this issue.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much happening so quickly, pushing the whole agenda.
I know we're about out of time, so let me just, I'm really concerned about Israel. I have a lot of friends there. Israel is in a very difficult position. Now, I think if we look at this prophetic scriptures, Israel ultimately prevails, but we also know that there will be many wars between now and the end. And I think we're in this wars and rumors of war stage. I know there's also threats being made by Russia and China against the United States and the West, and nuclear weapons involved. And I think we need to be concerned about that because, people are actively poking the Russian bear.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm not, as you know me, I'm not very impressed with Mr. Putin
Yeah.
or Mr. Xi from China because I think they're very evil people. But they're evil people on the other side of the ledger that don't seem to care if we're in a war. The epicenter of that right now seems to be the war between Israel and Hamas and what is, I think, inevitably a coming war between Israel and Hezbollah in the north. Israel's really being attacked on 7, 8, maybe 9 or 10 fronts. Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, and then you have the media war against them. Their soldiers are, I think, I think they're ready for Hezbollah, but I think their soldiers are tired. And we found that in the United States with the multiple deployments we had in the endless wars over the last 20 years. And our soldiers are they're worn out. They're tired. And you can't continue to send people into a war zone, bring them home for a few months, send them back home for a couple of months, send them back. It's not a good cycle to be in. It's incredibly difficult. So I know that, and it's difficult on both sides of the issue. There's a lot of traumatized people in the world right now because of these wars.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't think that that's happening anywhere else. But it's also happening. There's civil war in Libya. There's civil war in Sudan. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in Sudan are at risk of famine on a very, very bad scale. You don't even hear about it because so many people are concerned about Israel because that's the Jews. And so there's a very inconsistent response to a lot of these things. So I just think that we're going to see war in Lebanon pretty soon. I think it's going to be pretty extensive based on interviews I've done with people that research the security situation in the north. The tunnels that Hezbollah has built in Lebanon are far, far, far more extensive than what Gaza built in the Hamas built in Gaza. And so this is going to be a big problem. And I don't know exactly where it all ends, but I think we're clearly going to see a big war in Lebanon. And then that might bring in other people. Syria is going to get involved because Hezbollah's there. Iran's getting involved. Iraq's going to get involved. Other countries like Russia, China. Iran is supplying ballistic missiles now to Russia for use in its war with Ukraine. Well, what you take away from that is Iran has ballistic missiles. But what if they get nuclear weapons? And what if they're holding off attacking Israel so they can finish up their nuclear program, which seems to be the case right now? It's going to be a very, very volatile rest of the year in 2024 and very volatile in 2025. We're soon going to sit here and say, boy, last week seemed pretty good. Let's go back to last week rather than last year.
Yeah.
And I think we're at that stage right now.
Yeah, it's definitely concerning times. From a natural perspective, things look terrible. There's not really anything on the horizon that would say have hope. So our hope can't be in the natural. It needs to be in the eternal, I guess. And our faith in Jesus.
I think we need to focus on Jesus and the promises that he made. And, when Jesus was here the first time, he told his disciples, you guys should consider yourself blessed that you get to live at this time. The prophets would have loved to live at this time. And I'm pretty sure he would say the same thing to us. You should feel yourself blessed that you're living at this time when you can see these things unfold. And we know what the end is. But yeah, there's a lot of pain, trouble, tribulation, and persecution and things before then. So I think we need to kind of armor up, put on the whole armor of God is good advice, and trust in the Lord, be people of prayer, but also be aware of the things that are going on.
Yes, well, that's true. That's good advice, John. Okay, well, yep, certainly eye-opening stuff. So, thank you again, John.
Sure, Tony. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure, John. And enjoy the rest of your time in California. A little bit you got left.
I sure will. God bless.
Bless you too. Thank you. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to us at aminutemidnight.com. Down the right-hand side of the page there, enter your email address where it says subscribe to blog. We do run A Minute to Midnight 100% by donations. As usual, I'd just like to say a big thank you to the people who do donate to help us keep this running. And if anyone else wants to help by donating, you can do that at our website, aminutemidnight.com. Well, God bless and God willing, we'll be back with another episode in a few days' time. So stay safe and keep looking up.